Hello and welcome to English Literature with Susan. Today, my topic is Carl Sandburg, the American poet, and his short poem, The Grass. The poem is written in 1918 in the mid-time of the First World War. Carl Sandburg was American, but he was present in Europe, in Sweden, at the time of the war, reporting the incidents of the war for the magazine. Sandberg, and his name may show, was of Swedish background. Both his parents were Swedish immigrants to America, and they met and they married. And Carl was the offspring of their marriage. He was a self-educated poet. Whatever he had learned it by himself. He never had a successful educational background, let's say. And he is one of the poets and one of the writers of the American Midwest, quite popular at the teens of the 19th century, like Ernest Hemingway. And later on, when Hemingway won the Nobel Prize for Literature, he said Sandberg should have just praised like that. And later on, Sandberg said that this is important to me, but what is significant to me, the only thing maybe of prominence is that later on, when they ask about me, they say Hemingway has dedicated his reward to him. So don't we may not hear a lot from Carl Sandburg these days, but at his own day, he was a poet of America. He's one of those poets of America, like Robert Frost, for example, like his predecessor, his, let's say, father figure, Walt Whitman. He really wrote about America, and the image of America is the image of his poetry in many occasions. Carl Sandburg was somehow also influenced by the Imagist movement, but he was marked by an Imagist like Ezra Pound for his being self-educated, not being as erudite, as educated as them. From his early life, he had experienced a close contact with nature, and later on, as a teenager, he traveled like a hobo, and they were living in the forest together. They shared some of the jungles around the cities like Chicago. Chicago is the prime place in his poetry. He has even written the poem Chicago, and the whole volume called Chicago. Chicago, as the symbol of the American Midwest, appears in his poetry as a mother city. In the poem Chicago, he explains to the city that you're everything. That though you may seem ugly, but you are a source of life. Let's say. Carl Sandburg has also written some maybe interesting short stories. At first, he just narrated those stories to his own daughters, but later on, he turned them into a full volume. But they are like fairy tales of the modern time. Another important thing about Sandberg is that he was born in the same city as Abraham Lincoln, and Lincoln's has a place in his mind, and he's the biographer of Lincoln. So it's the biography of Lincoln is his lifelong task. Knowing these things about Sandberg, let us move to his poem, The Grass. And let me add one more point here. Sandberg, from his political point of view, was a socialist. He wanted equality and change for the society, and that's why maybe some of other American figures didn't like him, like Robert Frost, for example, because of his political attitude and supporting the Democrats in one of the American elections. And this is the image of one of the prairies, the prairies of the American Midwest, in which, in such a location, Sandberg had spent his childhood. And he said, I didn't know, but the people I saw here, the life I had experienced there, becomes the later material of my poetry. And this is the grass, the poem, the short poem. Pile, and the speaker of the poem is, of course, the grass itself. Pile the bodies high at Austerlitz and Waterloo. In this poem, Sandberg refers to some of the important wars happening in the history. Austerlitz and Waterloo are all parts of, or two locations, two battlefields of Napoleon Wars in Europe. Austerlitz is located in Netherlands and Waterloo in Belgium. Uh, this is what we saw, the image. I'm sorry. This is the image. I'm sorry. The image of Waterloo, for example. And this is an image of this icon of Austerlitz. This icon was uh, constructed before the war, but later on they decided that it can be a good sign of the war. And as you can see, the grass has covered these steps. It's like the monument of the soldier for the dead soldiers, or kind of a tribute, but actually the building was supposed to represent something else. By the way, the grass is the point here for Carl Sandburg, and you can see an image of the Napoleonic Wars in Europe. So he talks about war and how wars scars are just covered by the grass. So the grass is not a blessing healing element. It's just covering what man has made of man, to use William Wordsworth's quotation. The grass is talking, shovel them, the dead bodies, under, and let me work. I am the grass, I cover all. And pile them high at Gettysburg. Gettysburg is one of the main battlefields of the American Civil War between the Unionists and the Confederate forces. And he's suggesting something. The countries who are now involved in the First World War were also involved in different wars, but as if war is not enough for them, they engage in even a mightier battlefield, which is the whole Europe and even America in the First World War and its occasion. And pile them high at Ypres and Verdun. Ypres and Verdun are two other locations related to the First World War. Ypres is in Belgium and Verdun in France. Uh, this image shows let's say the intensity of the war and what it has done to the city in the First World War. And this is also a map of the battlefield in Verdun. And now let's see what that place is looking like. So the grass has covered. Oh, this image is exactly from this battlefield in Verdun, and it is now changed into a beautiful natural landscape. Um, Shovel them under and let me work. So you human beings murder, and I, nature or the grass, just cover the dead bodies. But it doesn't mean that they don't exist or they turn into the grass. No, I just cover them. 2 years, 10 years, and passengers ask the conductor when the passengers are passing these fields by a train. They would ask the conductor, "What place is this? Where are we now?" Not like an image like this. I am the grass. So they don't know anything from the battlefield. They cannot find any signs of the battlefield because the battlefield is just covered by the grass. I am the grass. Let me work. And this was my introduction and explanation of this poem. Thank you very much for listening, and I hope I can see you in my next videos.